Hello, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us today. You're very welcome to our first Startup Canada Equal Size Program webinar of 2025. Empower Your Pitch, Strategies for Founders belonging to systemically excluded companies. My apologies. I'm Isabel Nolan, Director of Programs at Startup Canada. So to begin, although I am currently in Ireland, I would like to acknowledge the land on which Startup Canada was founded is located on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We also acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples, and I encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory that you're residing on today. So today's session is being recorded and we'll be adding it to our YouTube channel afterwards as a living resource. We welcome you all to connect with each other in the chat and make sure that you are sending messages to everyone in the room. So Startup Canada, if you aren't familiar with us, we're a national nonprofit that's the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're here to connect entrepreneurs with the support, community, and tools that they need to build a successful business in Canada. And Startup Canada and Pizza Hut have joined forces this year to empower entrepreneurs by providing them access to funding, educational webinars like this one, and business resources to help break down the systemic barriers. So with the belief that everyone deserves an equal opportunity to succeed, the Startup Canada Equal Size program offers pitch competitions, educational support, and tailored business tools to help entrepreneurs grow and scale their ventures. Before we get started with today's conversation, I am thrilled to introduce Hannah White, who is the head of people at Pizza Hut Canada, to say a few words about Pizza Hut, about Equal Size, and about our partnership. Hannah, I'll pass it over to you.
Amazing. Thanks, Isabel. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's always exciting to kick off these webinars, and I know as entrepreneurs, oftentimes this is a sacred time where you guys are actually carving out opportunities to invest in your personal development or your business development. And that always isn't something that you put into your regular routine. So just you should feel proud and thank you so much for joining us today to learn about how to empower your pitch. Isabel gave us a great shout out, but for those of you who may be new to the Pizza Hut Equal Size program, we're actually entering our 5th year supporting entrepreneurs across Canada. And we're super excited to expand our reach by partnering with Startup Canada for the first year of our this year. And as Isabel said, our program really focuses on providing resources, education, and grant funding through our pitch competitions. Which a shameless shout out. The first one is coming up on June 10th. If you haven't signed up, feel free to check it out on their website. We'll be giving out 5 $10,000 prizes, and then we'll have a virtual cohort later on this year giving out an additional 5 $10,000 prizes. So we're super excited to be able to partner with Startup and really integrate into their ecosystem across Canada. And thank you guys again just so much for joining us and looking forward to today's session.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hannah, for joining us, and to Pizza Hut as a whole for this incredible partnership. It's our first of 3 years. So we're so excited to dig into it and get it started. And yes, as Hannah plugged, we do have a pitch competition happening in person in Toronto on June 10th. We have some details to follow about that. We'll add the application form into the chat here. Applications will be open until this coming Monday, May 26th. And this webinar, it will really help you with that. If you are thinking about pitching, we'll also be doing a virtual pitch in October as well. So fear not if you aren't based in Toronto or the surrounding areas. So today's webinar, as the title alludes, it's really how to craft a compelling pitch that resonates with investors or stakeholders or whoever you are having those conversations with. There are so many different pitches that you'll need to design when you are a founder, but also while navigating unique challenges faced by entrepreneurs from systemically excluded communities. Our wonderful speakers today will provide insight into the funding landscape in Canada, share their personal experiences on securing funding, and as well as some useful strategies and resources. So we've prepared quite a few questions for our panelists today. However, if you do have a question, please use the Q&A box in the bottom function on bar on your screen. and we will do our best to answer it. Of course, if you're attending here today, I'm sure there are questions that you have. So we would love to be able to provide you some insight and some answers into anything that you are struggling with at the moment. So without further ado, I'm honored to introduce our speakers today. We have Rohit, who is the founder and general manager of DoGood Funding. Mehrsa is the founder of Revenue Consultant, and Amin is the co-founder and CEO at Craver. And to help set up our conversation for today and provide some background on their experience, as well as give you an insight of what we're actually going to be delving into, Rohit and Mehrsa have prepared a short presentation to share their own experience, their own background, and kind of get us started for this. So Rohit, I'll pass it over to you first, and let me know if you'd like me to share your slides for you or if you're all set up. Oh, here we go.
Thanks so much, Isabel, and thank you to Startup Canada and Pizza Hut for having us here. So I'm going to go pretty quickly. There's a lot to cover. So I encourage you to take a screenshot or a grab with your phone if there's something that really sparks your interest. And so we're going to be talking about funding. A little bit of background: DoGood Funding raises money for entrepreneurs, for charities, and nonprofits. If that's interesting, please reach out to Startup Canada and they can connect you to us. So about me, I've been involved in the funding sector for most of my life. I started raising money for charities, and I'm an entrepreneur myself. Having started DoGood Funding, we've raised over $20 million so far, but there's a lot more work to do. So if you want to learn more, please connect on LinkedIn. In this presentation, we'll talk about the current landscape when it comes to grants in Canada. We'll talk about funding for early stage entrepreneurs. I'll talk about the key criteria that you need when it comes to funding, where to find relevant grants, and how equity deserving folks can navigate this landscape. So let's talk about the current grant landscape in Canada. I'm going to tell you that I get calls from entrepreneurs all the time, whether they're sole proprietors, corporations, and they say, "We need help. Can you help us find funding?" And very often I find that the biggest funder, which is usually government, doesn't directly fund entrepreneurs. And I find that they tend to support outcomes. So they tend to support things like employment outcomes through wage subsidies. They tend to support things like economic growth and development in our economy. They do that through loans. And they tend to provide opportunities to reduce barriers, especially for equity-seeking groups. And they do that through grants. But there's this whole combination of grants, loans, and subsidies. And I really encourage folks who are listening to this webinar to access all of these opportunities to finance and scale your business. So when it comes to funding, all sorts of different institutions offer this support. There's corporations who lend. We have a relationship at DoGood with Alterna. It's a credit union based in Ontario, and they lend money. I'm sure a lot of you have relationships with your own financial institutions. They're often the best place to go when it comes to lending. Then there's corporate groups like, for example, TELUS, Desjardins. You may have heard of some of the opportunities that they offer for businesses to get access to funding. Yes, those are two examples of corporate groups that actually host their own grant programs. And so you can find those opportunities and apply for those when they come up. They're usually once a year, and those corporate groups are providing grants to folks who need it. And then there's government that gives various forms of support, often grants and loans, subsidies as well. The Employment Ontario logo is on your screen because we're actually working with them quite a bit to do subsidies, wage subsidies. So what they do is they subsidize the cost of hiring an employee. They'll give a portion of those costs to cover things like training, onboarding those folks. And so wherever you are across Canada, your local government, especially the provincial government, is probably a good place to go when it comes to accessing things like subsidies. Now, early stage entrepreneurs are all looking for funding. Where can you access this? I've put together just a few. I'm going to go through them really quickly. So the Starter Company Plus grant is a big one. They're about to host their information sessions all across the country. You need to go to your local entrepreneur center to find out about this program. You need to get on the waiting list for a summer information session. They're usually mandatory. It gives you the opportunity to get $5,000 to kick off a new venture, a new business, even to take an existing business and to pivot. So I found this very helpful at the start of COVID when I applied to the Entrepreneur Center in Brampton, Ontario, and I did get $5,000. It felt really good. So speak to your local center. The the average entrepreneur needs startup funding, and Futurepreneur Canada is the place to go for that. So Futurepreneur actually offers equity-free loans up to $75,000, which is fantastic for anyone ages 18 to 39. So they do focus on that particular demographic. And this often includes a special arrangement with BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada. And so that's usually up to $50,000 in financing from that side. Tons of resources, support, mentorship. It's really a great organization to reach out to as long as your business is in the early stages of development. So this is one of their promotional pieces that says at the bottom there, the future looks like you, secure a loan with mentorship up to 75,000 for your startup, supporting young entrepreneurs in business up to 24 months. So that is the key. You have to be a new or relatively new business up to 24 months. Access Community Capital Fund provides up to $5,000 to start up or scale your business. Maybe you have no credit, maybe you have poor credit, maybe you've just been unable to get financing. Access Community Capital, it's accessccf.com. They actually have a few different streams there. So on the left is the Women's Business Accelerator stream. In the middle, they talk about the Small Business Accelerator. On the right side, the Women's Business Launch stream that provides workshops and coaching. So Access is one of those organizations that you can go through, and you need to figure out which stream is best for you. A number of the institutions I'm talking about today have different streams that you can go to. And so do take time to go on their websites, do some research before you reach out or before you apply. Rise Asset Development gives loans of up to $10,000 to launch or grow your business over a 3-year term. And so if you've ever experienced mental health challenges, addiction, that sort of thing, maybe you've just been unable to access bank financing, this is a great opportunity. You can find out more through risehelps.ca. How can Rise help you? They can provide you with low interest small business loans. They can provide you with business training to help you navigate this landscape. And they can provide you with mentorship as well. That's just a little snippet I included from their website. MeTax Accelerate is one, especially for those of you who are trying to access academic expertise. So they give you up to $15,000. You have to have an academic institution contributing at least $7,500, so half of that amount. And this is all for folks who want to do R&D work, who want to collaborate with academics, faculty, grad students, even postdoctoral fellows. Go to meetax.ca and check it out. It might be a good opportunity for you. Their process is that they have a match. And so they'll match you up with a research project. There has to be a proposal submitted through MeTax with the academic institution involved. And then your project includes internships that have a minimum of 4 months of duration, and you can scale up as much as you need. So for more, go to meetax.ca. Scale AI gives a minimum of $5,000 in funding. There's no maximum amount that they give, so I guess it's unlimited. There's no maximum training duration, and it's open all year round. ScaleAI.ca is the website, and they will subsidize costs for training. They have a digital intelligence program that they're offering. So ScaleAI.ca. Canadian Small Business Financing Program gives actually up to 1.15 million, not bad, with term loans of up to $1 million and lines of credit up to $150,000. So the way to access this is to actually talk to your bank. The website there is ised-isde.canada.ca. And so let's talk about criteria for funding. I'll just break it down like this. It's all about the right fit. If your existing projects and your existing work can continue, fantastic. If the focus of the funder is aligned with your focus as an entrepreneur, that's really great. And if the amount of money that you're asking for is suitable and it's based on the budget for your program or project, excellent. And when when it talks about criteria for funding, the wrong fit would be if you're creating new businesses or new projects just to access that funding. That's something we recommend you don't do. Always make sure that what the funder is funding is the same as yours. So we talked about MeTax Accelerate, for instance. They're allowing you to get partnered up with academics. If there's no academics in your business, don't go for that funding, for instance. And it's not a good idea to ask for more money than what you need. Really ask for just what you need. And just wrapping up here, when it comes to the criteria for funding, we want you to really think about strategy. So as an entrepreneur, ask yourself, have I followed the guidelines on that funding application? Did I answer the questions? Are there errors in my logic? If your budget says something and your application says something, make sure they speak to each other. Really work on the strategy before you start writing the funding application, whether it's a grant or a loan or a subsidy. Where can you find relevant grants? Well, DoGood has our own system that we built called dogoodgrants.ca. It's a database. Startup Canada often features funding opportunities, which is a great resource. Your local bank can actually help you with loans, so just speak to an officer. And then I like this Government of Canada Business Benefits Finder. That's by ISED, Innovation, Science, and Economic Development. If you go online and you just search Business Benefits Finder, you start clicking the drop downs and it takes you through a series of, I guess, drop downs. You enter a little bit of information, then it helps you find all sorts of funding. So that's pretty much it. Don't wait, apply now. Keep searching for grants. When in doubt, reach out. Always answer the question and create a sense of urgency as an entrepreneur that will encourage your funder to act. Thank you for listening and handing it back to Isabel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rohit, for putting this together and for taking us through these funding opportunities and strategies as well. And I'm looking forward to picking your brain a little bit more on all of this. And if it's okay, we can possibly share this with our attendees afterwards as well. So if anyone didn't screenshot a certain slide, we can definitely get that to you as well. And we've also been adding in all of the links to all the organizations that you mentioned as well, for ease of access. So again, we'll collect everything for you after this and send it to you as well in case anyone misses anything. Alrighty, so thank you so much. Mehrsa, I would love to pass it over to you now.
Thank you. It's hard to follow Rohit, but I'll do my best. I'm going to share a presentation that I prepared for New Ventures BC. They have a venture accelerator program. And that was for how to create a compelling seed pitch deck. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to focus on a couple slides. One is about what we call company overview or what you do. And the other one is traction. But I can share the template that I have prepared for them, and it has like detailed speaker notes later. So Isabel, you can share it with the audience. But let me just share my screen and get started. So this is the deck. Again, the deck is for crafting a compelling and simple seed pitch deck that resonates with investors. The focus is on investors. This is my favorite quote for seed pitch decks, is by Michael from Y Combinator. It says, "You stand out by being concise and easy to understand." And you can see slides are simple, and you don't get distracted by all the designs and different things going on. So that's on purpose and intentional. Let me focus on the company overview. Like, we as entrepreneurs, we want to explain to investors what we do. And that's very important, because if they don't know what we do, they will not get engaged for the rest of the conversation. And that's when they get on their phones or start checking their emails. And when we lost them, it's very hard to bring them back. So there are two different ways that I wanted to share about how we as entrepreneurs can explain what we do. The first one you might be familiar with is we talk about the problem and the solution. So I'll walk you through that, and then I'll talk to you about the second way of doing it. So for the problem, we want to clearly explain the customer pain and define our target segment. So it's important to explain who the customer is so the investors can understand who we're going to be selling this to, who's going to pay for this, whose problem are we solving, whose pain are we removing. So let's focus on Airbnb, and I'm doing that because Michael in the video that I'm going to share is talking about Airbnb. And I think I've shared that, Isabel, if you want to share the link to the pitch, is this is a training by Michael from Y Combinator. I highly recommend you review that. It kind of explains to you how he would pitch. And he uses the example of Airbnb. So that's what we're going to do here. So for the problem, let's focus on Airbnb. If I was the co-founder of Airbnb, how would I talk about my problem? Hotels are expensive and too similar. Travelers really struggle having affordable and unique places to stay. Usually hotels are expensive, impersonal, and fully booked. So it's hard to find a hotel around where you want to be and exactly to the specific specifications you want. And when you book a place at the home or an apartment, usually you have extra space. So it's easier to stay at the apartment or a home, but it's not easy to rent it out or rent it. So let's now talk about a solution. We want to focus on a very clear way of explaining what we do in as few words as possible, and really focus on the benefits that we provide for solving that problem. Let's go back to the Airbnb example again. So when we talk about a problem, we'll say, so now Airbnb solved this problem. Airbnb is an online platform that allows the travelers book affordable, unique stays in local homes. Hosts can earn money by renting their unused space, and that would provide the travelers more options, lower costs, and local experience, better than hotels. So you really explain how the solution solves the problem we just explained. So this is one way of explaining what we do. So now I want to go to the second way, which is explained in the video of Y Combinator. And I want to break it down. This is my preferred way of doing it, and I'll tell you a little bit more about why I think this is a better way as well. And Amin, I know you're amazing in doing pitches, so if you have feedback afterwards, please feel free to jump in. So let's look at the different way of doing it. So company overview. Instead of talking about the problem and solution, we stick with 2 sentences. Simple, describe what we do, what our company does, and then follow with a specific example. So let's go back to the Airbnb and see if we were the co-founder of Airbnb and we wanted to use this model instead. How would we say it? So sentences. I would say Airbnb allows a homeowner or apartment owner to rent their place online. That's the first sentence. And then say Airbnb collect the payment online, and they take about 15 or 10% on every booking. And that would explain how Airbnb actually makes money. So those are the 2 sentences. Then the magic happens in the example. For the example, we want to stick with a real world example that really resonates with the investors. They're not our customers. They may not be familiar with exactly what we do or why we care about this problem or how big this problem is. So we want to provide an example that really resonates and they understand it and is easy to follow. So let's go with a real world example for Airbnb. Imagine it's 2024 and Taylor Swift is coming to Vancouver. All hotels are booked and you're an entrepreneur bootstrapping, living in Vancouver. You can make $3,000, $5,000, $7,000 per night by renting your apartment or unused room in your place on Airbnb. And that would help you pay your rent for the next few months. All you need to do is take a few photos of your place, put it on Airbnb. They'll find you great guest. You can provide them a great experience, and you get paid for your rent months with the money that you make for renting your apartment. This is a very specific example that the investor can understand. This entrepreneur is going to be able to pay their rent. The problem of that traveler, that all the hotels are booked and they cannot find a place to stay. And takes you back to 2024 when the Eras Tour of Taylor Swift brought over 100,000 people in town and you couldn't find any place to stay. So let's look into how we can bring that magic into the specific example that we gave. First, we focus on a real world example. This one is very important. Focusing on 80% accuracy and 100% clear. My PhD was in math. So for me as a co-founder of startups, it's very hard to shift my mindset from being accurate to being clear. Because I used to make teeny tiny microneedles. And if I had a nano or micro mistake, my experiment will fail or my formulation wouldn't work. This is different. Now we need to focus on being 80% accurate by 100% clear, because we're not writing a PhD thesis or we're not submitting our paper to a journal. So specifically for technical founders, this is very important. Let's focus on accuracy. Sorry, let's focus on being clear, not accuracy, so the investors can really follow what we're saying. This is very important for the example. We also picked a specific example, took us back to 2024 when Taylor Swift came in town. Anyone who was in Vancouver can remember that time and how busy the city was. So we're going to avoid void examples or general examples. Instead, we focus on specific examples. And instead of the first method that talks about the problem and solution in a different slide, and you're trying to figure out, okay, what does that person do? We'll talk about what we do in 2 sentences, and we'll talk about the problem and solution in the example instead. Remember when we talked about, oh, all the hotels were booked. As an entrepreneur, bootstrapping, every dollar counts. They probably invested their money in the startup. So making $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $7,000 a night goes a long way. So we talk about the problem and solution in this specific example. The other thing is, sometimes we as founders struggle with how to explain what we do. Sometimes we get very technical. Or we talk the way that we talk to our customers, like what we have on our website, how we explain what our product solved the problem of the customer is not necessarily what the investor want to hear. So there are 2 different types of pitch decks we can have. One for investors, one for customers. So Isabel, there's another link that I shared before the call that, again, is a training by Y Combinator. You can take a look at it. And it explains how you can have 2 different pitch decks, one for customers, one for investors. So the example that I gave is not how I would talk to my customers. It's for investors. I don't want to take them to the journey of this person, this traveler who came to Vancouver for Eras Tour and is really looking for a place to stay. And their focus is all about how to make the best fun of the tour that they paid so much money for. They don't want to go through all these hotels not booked and find a place that is like an hour out of Vancouver and be stuck in traffic for 2 or 3 hours. Use simple language so they can follow what you're saying. They may not be necessarily experienced in the industry that you work with, but you want to get them to invest in your company. So we want them to understand what we do. And the investors understanding what we do is very important. Again, if they don't understand what we do, they're not going to be engaged for the rest of the conversation, regardless of how important the problem we're solving is. So before we move to the next slide, it's important that we make sure they understand it. So don't be afraid of asking questions. Is it clear? Would providing another example help here? Do you want me to share more? Do you have any questions here? It's okay to pause here and make sure we have their attention before we move to the next slide. So just wanted to share this with you. By experience, I find the second model work a lot better. I had a mentee at New Ventures BC. She works on an innovative breast pump, and it would take her 5 minutes just to explain what she did. And it usually wouldn't stick, especially with male investors that don't necessarily face the problem of a breastfeeding parent. You have to wake up at 3 in the morning, pump your breast. But instead, she went through the second model, and she used a two-sentence model and provide a very specific example. And she talked about how when you have a baby that's on a breastfeed, uses the milk from the breast pump, and how it impacts the nutrition that he has, and how the baby can be crying all night. And then the male parents thought about all the times that they were awake at night, how the baby was crying when they were trying to pitch to the investors themselves. So that really resonated. And she had the highest rating in the feedback at the New Ventures BC VAP just by changing the model and providing a very specific example that resonated with the audience. So that is my two-way that I had for you for how to explain what you do. Quickly want to walk you through something else, another important slide, which is the traction. Again, there's so many things out there for you, how to different slides, the examples that I provided. I don't want to walk you through all those different slides. I'm just going to stick to those two most important slides for me, what you do and the traction. I'm going to show you a slide that I use for my company, Mitlist, for traction slide. And then I'll give it back to Isabel. Isabel, how are we doing with time? Can I have another like 1 or 2 minutes to walk through the traction?
Absolutely, yes.
So the traction slide really proves the problem and the solution that you talked about, how much it resonates with your customers. Because if your customers are not going to pay for it, you're not going to have a sustainable, profitable business. You're never going to get that beautiful day that you say, you know what, I broke even. I finally broke even. So the traction, it really explains how you're walking towards that breaking even point and becoming a profitable venture, which is a dream for any founder, right? So let me share with you what I had for Mintlist. And once I share it, I'll share some pointers. I mean, again, feel free to unmute and jump in. If you have any feedback or comments, you have fantastic traction for the company that you're building. So this is my traction slide for Mintlist. It was Mintlist is an online marketplace that helps car buyers and car sellers to connect and buy and sell cars from each other. And Mintlist makes money by charging the dealers a 2% success fee on every transaction. A real world example would be, imagine you are a busy woman entrepreneur. You're trying to sell your car, and you're using public translate right now. You really don't need your car. You rather invest your money in your startup. You're trying to get rid of your car, but you're super busy. You don't want to go through all these auto traders of the world and Craigslist and having strangers coming to your door. And you can take a few photos of your car. The app takes all the damages, the condition of your car expert to know exactly what are the options of your car and how you have to explain it so that dealers are going to have a better pricing for your car. It will do everything for you. Takes 2 minutes. Put all the pictures online, and then you see all the dealers bidding on it. And then you get the best price. If you want, take it. If you don't, you won't take it. And then you can get check. Or if you're a person who actually wants to buy a new car, once you buy a new car, you can actually trade it. Imagine you sell your Honda for $30,000 to a Honda dealer, pick up a Mercedes for $50,000 from a Mercedes dealer, and then you pay the tax on a $20,000 difference. And that saves you like $6,000 in tax. So real world example. So imagine if that's what Mintlist do, that was my traction slide. This was pre-revenue. This was, in fact, before we had publicly launched our product. And that was when we oversubscribed our round in about a couple of weeks. So you really don't have to have revenue to be able to raise a good round and from prestigious investors. So how we talked about our traction was we have built an MVP and we had over $2 million in committed revenue. So we actually showed our MVP to customers, to dealers who were going to pay the fees, and then got their commitment for revenue. So we show here that we have over $2 million in committed revenue. We had captured 15% of the new car dealers in BC, which is our beachhead market. We had 94% closing ratio. So it means that me, as a female entrepreneur who was not from the auto industry, and that's when I talk about my how I'm don't fit the quota for a female, for a founder of an auto industry startup, that I have a 94% closing ratio. So if I, with no industry background, no auto experience, female, walk into a car dealerships, I can close 94% of the dealers that I talk to, and that's in less than 10 minutes. And in the year that it took us to develop, and we followed up with all of them, we had 100% retention. No one said, you know what? No, we're not going to pay for this, because that's committed revenue that we had. They had actually signed, they were legally bound to pay our fees when we go live. And that this part on the right shows that we had 5.1 million additional potential access fees, and very simply shows where we're gonna go after our beachhead market. And that's a very clear slide that shows your traction. Sorry, I was looking for the word traction. So that's a very simple traction slide that really shows what you've done so far. And I picked a slide. I have a slide that showed that when we were post-revenue and all that, but I wanted to show it because lots of questions that I get from early stage startup founders are like, well, what if I don't have revenue? Then focus on the things you've done, or focus on the fact that you've been able to get $2 million in committed revenue in 6 months. Or the fact that you've been able to build your MVP and capture 15% of the market before you even launch. Show the speed of execution. Show that it resonates with the customers, and they're excited about the solution that you bring into the market. That's what they're committing $2 million, and that they're committing to pay you the revenue that adds up to $2 million before you even go to market. So again, I'll send you the template that I have. If you have any questions, put in the chat. We can cover it during the Q&A. But that's all I had, Isabel, for now. Thank you.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Mehrsa, for putting that together, and so many nuggets for all of our attendees here today. And you're so right. Traction doesn't necessarily need to be revenue based. There's so much other things you can be showing to investors or whoever you're pitching to, that there is an appetite in the market for what you're doing. I saw that Amin had his hand up, so I don't know, Mehrsa, if that means he has some feedback.
Yes, please, Amin, jump in. I'm all ears.
I want to just say one thing that Mehrsa didn't mention about that slide that is also very important. In that slide, there are a bunch of things that is not said that is basically you're saying with that slide. For example, showing the map of Canada with few dots, that is about 5.1 million in pipeline. What it's also saying, without any words, is that the rest of Canada is going to be the next, and it will be available to capture next. So you don't need to necessarily have words on a slide to communicate. And so it's all about like using fewest words possible, but like really putting the focus on what is important for that specific point in time.
Yeah, excellent point. And thank you so much. They were fantastic. And again, to anyone who missed it, we will share these slides and resources with you afterwards as well, so that you can best prepare for the next pitch that you're doing. So I see we're getting some questions in the Q&A box. Thank you so much for the folks that have already put those in. There's a few questions I want to cover that will help kind of set us up for the conversation. And there's some questions that have come in that we will definitely be getting to that sort of topic. Before we go into it, Amin, I would love to give you the floor for a moment just to introduce yourself, just as Rohit and Mehrsa were able to do.
For sure. Thanks, Isabel. So my name is Amin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Craver. And what we do is that we help coffee shops become tech companies the same way that the Starbucks is more of a tech company than a coffee company. And we do that by getting them to engage their guests and get them to come back more often. And that is my two-sentence intro for Craver, Mehrsa.
Fantastic, using the two sentence theory. So I think, it would be great to pose to each of you before we get into the nitty-gritty parts of it. This program is for entrepreneurs that belong to systemically excluded communities. And so a lot of them are probably facing additional barriers than some, I suppose, entrepreneurs that aren't part of those communities. So I'd love to ask to each of you, for those entrepreneurs, how can these founders kind of be proactively addressing the unique challenges that they're facing, or is there leverage in them using their diversity as an advantage? Maybe Rohit, I can pass to you first.
Yeah, I would say the first thing you have to do is to speak to the decision makers and let them know about the barriers or challenges that you're facing. I can think back to when we applied for some financing. An institution told us, well, you guys have to go through our commercial division. And I said to them, I said, hey guys, we're a small business, right? You know, for us to go through this, for us to jump through these hoops, it's a lot. So can you make any accommodations for us? Is there anything you can do? And I find that when you communicate that to institutions, whether it's the barriers you're facing or the access issues or the challenges, they can sometimes make adjustments. They always have room for adjustment. And that encourages your funders and supporters to act, right? And to support your business.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Rohit. Mehrsa, how about yourself? Mehrsa, how about your thoughts on leveraging their diversity as an advantage?
I mean, I pointed out a little bit in my slide that how I did it. I would love to hear from Amin. I talk a lot, so I would love to hear from Amin.
Sure, Amin, take the floor.
I think one thing that is very important to understand is that any decision that comes around financing, around funding your business or not funding, as much as we like to think it is a rational decision, at the end of the day, it's an emotional decision that they're making. And like, so what you need to do as a founder, no matter what the background is to really play to that. And like what Rohit and Mehrsa was talking about, building that relationship, it's all about that side. And so I think what is important and what I think can be very useful for diverse founders is that you can actually use your experiences as a way to show the problem that you're trying to solve a lot better than somebody that doesn't have that experience. So in the case of that Mehrsa was talking about, the founder that she was mentoring, the fact that she had that experience will basically be an unlock, like a male or somebody that is not familiar with that problem will not be able to explain that problem well. So actually that could play as a positive, but at the end of the day, you need to build that emotional side of the selling your business in addition to just the numbers and like all the pitch and the tactical side that we are probably going to be talking more about today.
Brilliant. Thank you, Amin. And Rohit, from your experience in DoGood funding, what are some common misconceptions that entrepreneurs have about securing this sort of equity-free funding that's in Canada?
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I get, the most common misconception I hear is that there's just a ton of funding available. It's available, it's out there. People will just call me, hey, Rohit, I heard there's funding. Like, how can I get it? And the thing is that it takes a lot of research. You have to constantly be looking out for these opportunities, go on their websites, read their eligibility criteria, make sure that your venture is actually eligible, right? Because there's geography-based funding, that might just be based in Ontario or BC, for instance. And then there's opportunities, as I mentioned in my presentation, it's for entrepreneurs who may be having mental health challenges, or maybe they've been denied by other institutions. And then there's specific opportunities for academics or R&D, manufacturing, maybe AI development. So you have to make sure that your innovation is exactly what the funder is looking for. And if it's not, maybe you shouldn't spend a ton of time applying for it. It has to be the right fit, as I mentioned in the presentation. And I think that requires research. You must research the eligibility criteria, read about the opportunity, maybe speak to a program officer or a staffer from that funding institution before you take the time to apply.
Excellent advice. Thank you. And we got really great examples from Mehrsa on how she like the key elements, I guess, Mehrsa, right, on your pitches that helped you gain more funding and how you applied the traction in that slide. I mean, can you talk to your experience in when you were pitching your business and going for funding, what were some of the key elements that you used in these pitches that helped you gain traction and support from funders?
100%. I think that there are two parts, especially if you want institutional monies like VC funding. There are two distinct parts, segments of the market that you need to address it slightly differently. Like if you are pre-revenue, like Mehrsa was talking about, a lot of what you are selling is the vision of what the company is going to be in the future. And you don't need to have the necessary numbers to prove it, but you need to have like a starting phase of the numbers that could go into that direction. So you're selling your pitch deck is kind of different because you're selling a vision, you're selling a story of what you're going to be building. But as soon as you start to gather those real customers with the revenue that are coming in now, you have built your product and you have built the traction, then you need to be showing how that is going. I need to be showing that in a way that creates the same story. At the end of the day, what you are doing with your pitch deck, you're telling a story. Now you have numbers to put in place to confirm some of the hypotheses that you had before and how that ends up to be true or false. And I think you can use that as like even a false, like a hypothesis that you couldn't prove can lead you to a change and to a different approach in the future. So for us, one of the things that was very helpful after I talked about what Craver does before jumping into the solution, we put up a slide with I think 8 different numbers. Those were the 8 numbers that will show where we are, how we are doing, and what is the traction to date. And those answer some of the high level questions that a VC would have about what Craver is doing. So you can answer those and put them aside. Now you can capture their attention. So you can actually take their time. You can take them through the product, through the problem and solution statements as well.
Brilliant, thanks. And I think another part that Mehrsa brought up, and if you want to speak more to it, please be my guest, is the 80% accurate and 100% clear. And I've seen this so many times in the pitch competitions that we've done, especially if it's anything health related or science. Typically the founder is of one of those backgrounds, and to them they know every single nuance of and exact detail of the science that goes behind what they do. But for the folks that are listening to the pitch, they aren't familiar or studied in those things. So the idea of being clear is so important rather than going into those like specific accurate details. Is there anything specific you'd like to add to that, Mehrsa, in your own your own background in pitching?
Am I unmuted? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Isabel, I've been thinking about this since you reached out to me, and I think what I'd like to add is, for me, when I think about raising money, and that can be from investors, non-dilutives, or customers, which is revenue, the best type of money any of us can get for our companies. One word comes to mind, and that's relationship. I know Amin talked about it, Rohit talked about it. So I think the only thing I want to add is focusing on building a strong relationship. And the most meaningful relationships are built before we need money, before we need that commitment. So there are three three types of people that I talked about. For example, customers, get their feedback before you start building, even before you're doing your MVP. If it's investors, reach out, build the relationships when you're thinking about building your startup and get them involved at that time. You don't need a pitch deck at that point when you want to raise. All you need is a really clear data room. So I would rather raise without a pitch deck. They already committed. They're waiting for me to raise. They're waiting because they want a piece of it, because they're so bought into it and they believe in it. And they've been part of it. And for government, non-dilutive providers, as Rohit mentioned, build a relationship. Like when people reach out to me like, oh, how did you, well, we raised like 10 million, I think in 2 years for Mint List, I think 6 million dilutives and 4 million non-dilutives. And everyone's like, oh, Masha, how did you do that? I mean, no one trained me. I didn't have any help, especially for non-dilutives. Just reach out to the government service providers. Rohit, you're the expert for it, right? But I would never apply for anything before I have talked to someone and they had recommended that I apply. Even if it's a simple like $100,000 can export, you need someone to be your ally. So again, I go back to word relationship. And once you build a relationship, they have time to remove all the biases that they have. Oh, Mehrsa is a new immigrant. Oh, Mehrsa is like a female entrepreneur. Oh, she doesn't have experience in the industry of the company she's building. Oh, it's just such other industries, just like different startups popping out. She doesn't even know the market. She doesn't understand the industry. She doesn't come from it. How she's going to navigate that? How she's going to have her hand on the pulse of the industry? Well, you got to give a month or even over a year to see you, to be with you, and then that removes all the bias. I think my ITA like was with me for a year and a half before he committed to give us money. And it got to a point that he would just text me. And it was like, hey, I have this thing, like this person, like it was like before the end of the year. It was like, I think January or something. He was like, oh, this person wasn't able their project. So there's extra money. Do you have more people that you want to hire? I was like, absolutely. That's the type of relationship we want to have.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
No, fantastic. I love that. And that leads in very well to a attendee question that we have from Faria. And they're asking, do you have any advice when approaching investors, and what are the best ways to approach investors? And if you don't have traction yet, other than the likes of DMing people on LinkedIn or networking. Amin, Mehrsa, any insights? Yeah, Amin.
I can chime in. For us, the best way to approach investors, especially the people that we haven't met, was through a warm intro to somebody else. So what I've spent a lot of time, I have these long spreadsheets of the investors that I want to talk to, and I go through my LinkedIn, all the people that are there. If there's a specific partner, figure out who could connect me, and sometimes that's not a direct connection that I have. So then reach out to people to second level network to get those first level network intros so that I can get that warm intro. That goes a long way, being able to talk to people. But the other part of it is that them understanding what you are asking for is very important. So the clarity that comes again, like if you ask someone just for their time without explanation of why, I think they're going to say no, because they don't know what they're getting themselves into. But if you can put together a 1 paragraph explanation, 3 bullet points, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, this is why I think you are the right investor for me, and this is what I need right now from you. Maybe it's an advice that you're asking for and not the money. Like maybe you can see their experience and see like, this is very aligned with what I need. This is very aligned with the problem that I'm trying to solve. I would like to pick your brain to figure out what are the next steps that I can do so I can be ready for fundraising, maybe in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years. I think those were the things that we did, and that was more successful. DMing on LinkedIn was not that great. Networking and finding people in the events, those usually will open the first door for a meeting. So I think that's good. One thing that I wanted to add on the point of clarity, one of the unlocks for us, I put it in the chat as well, it was a framework of communication called the Smart Brevity. That like there's a book right now, it's a mandatory read for anybody that is talking to customers or whole marketing team or sales team, they need to read this. And we are also even using it internally for internal communications. It gives you a way to distill down what you want to say in a format that people can easily skim through, get exactly what you want them to get, and they can decide if this is the right fit for me to continue or not. So I highly recommend that framework.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I saw that you shared that, so thank you so much for bringing that in. We did a webinar for another program that we run, and it was also centered around pitch and kind of going from pitching to an investor to securing funding. And the entrepreneur that we had on said that whenever she would pitch, and also, by the way, if you're doing a lot of these, there are a lot of no's that you'll get as well. And being aware that you will get a lot of no's before you get that first yes. But she would actually ask the investor, like, hey, okay, if this isn't something that you're interested in or that makes sense for you, is there anyone that you know that might be interested in, and getting some more introductions through that as well. There's always something that can come from those conversations as well if money isn't being transferred, like advice as well. So it's always worth it asking as well.
I'll add one more thing. One other big unlock for us for the intros was that when we were at the seed stage, we were talking to the Series A, Series B investors, knowing that we are not the right fit for them, but like get their attention, then ask them for intros to which funds are the feeder funds to them, like which funds do they think will be the right fit. And if there's an intro coming from a Series A or Series B fund investor that is introducing you to a seed funder, that goes a long way. Those doors are usually always open.
Excellent advice. Thank you.
I can add to that.
Mm.
I mean, I love the things that you said. Very similar to things I want to say. So I'll just try to say that complementary things without repeating the same thing. I love how you talked about like getting there early, and building that relationship, and then working backwards from like, the later stage funds. So that what I had written down for that was the salmon roll. So I think I was at entrepreneurship at UC that they taught us the salmon roll. That was for sales. And they say, start high, which means the top of the company, for example. Start high, stay high. If you're not high, get high. So I use that for investors too. So I mean, this is what's very similar to what you were saying, right? So you start from the like later stage and then you work backwards, or within an organization. I usually just go to the highest person in charge. And my experience, they always the most responsive, rather than an analyst or, oh, I work with this person or I met that person at this event. I'll just go to the top decision maker. And I give you a few examples. When I was talking to our VC, I connected with the person who runs it. The other experience I had with like Nicola Wealth, but that actually happened in a different way. That is another point I wanted to make, was that have your eyes and ears open. We as a startup founders are always selling, either to customers, investors, or anyone in between. So for me, I was looking to hire a CTO, and then my recruiter actually recommended Chris Nicola, who just stepped up as John Nicola to run Nicola Wealth. I think they have like, how much? I mean, like 11 billion or something under management, Nicola Wealth. So anyways, I get connected to Chris Nicola. So I was trying to recruit him as a CTO, and he was like, no, Mehrsa, I just finished. I need a break. I need to sell. I was like, I totally get it. But I stayed in touch, and I was like, you know what? I stayed in touch. I got his feedback, and he would, people that we've been a founder before, they would dedicate the time. If you build that type of relationship and they get him excited about what you do, and then guess what? We raised money from him and his dad, like John Nicola and Chris Nicola. They personally came in and they put a significant amount. In one day, it was a Sunday, no pitch deck, just access to the other room. That's all. So that's like salmon roll, the fact that you have to build a relationship, start early on, have your eyes and ears open. I think that example hits a lot of points. The other thing that I wanted to share, especially because Web Summit is coming, we had a fantastic investor, a billionaire who built, not sure if he wants me to share his name, so I'm just going to leave it out. a billionaire who built a very successful car business that is across Europe and Middle East. And I wouldn't have seen him anywhere, right? If it wasn't for, what was the name of Web Summit in Toronto? Collision?
Coalition.
Yeah, so
Collision.
if it wasn't Collision, I don't think I would have been able to reach out that guy ever. Like, I don't think that guy like responds his emails or anything like that, or LinkedIn. So I wasn't, okay, don't quote me, remove that from the recording. But we ended up at the investor lounge to meet with an investor and we never left. So, and then we ended up meeting from one investor to another investor, and that's where we met him. And then he literally wrote a check there. Again, no pitch deck, nothing. Just I was talking to another investor. He talked to my founder, my co-founder, who was like, I think I'm hearing something that I'm interested about. And then we gave him a link to our data point, and before Collision was over, he wrote a check for us. So
Wow.
Web Summit is coming. Make the best use out of it if you can.
Yeah, but just great points and examples of, you never know who you're going to be talking to, and having these things ready for these conversations, and just being prepared for that.
And
Congrats.
sorry, before I forget,
Yeah.
make sure that whatever you say, someone like if sorry, I'm sorry, I'm speaking Farsi in my head and I'm trying to translate it. What you're saying, people can hear. So be very mindful of like what you say or where you say it. If you're in an investor lounge, talk about all the traction and good things and get people excited. But if it's confidential, there's possibility that people hear it. So be mindful of that too.
Good point. Good point. Rohit, I would love to get back to you in terms of the support that you're providing entrepreneurs. So, as you mentioned, DoGood funding is supporting founders with finding funding through grants, subsidies, loan financing, tax credits. How can entrepreneurs best position themselves to access these types of funding? This is a two-parter, I guess. So how can they best position themselves? And what are some key elements of a compelling grant proposal that you see resonate with funders?
Right. So I think step one is to make sure you have a clear budget, a clear strategy for how you're planning to get through your milestones. And that is really number one. That is where I find sometimes entrepreneurs will contact us and I'll ask them very simple questions like, how are you generating revenue? How would you spend funding of $25, $50, $100,000? And sometimes those questions aren't, I don't get a clear response. And so I think that's very important. Knowing your numbers is essential for anyone who watches Shark Tank or Dragon's Den. You can see that when you get in front of a funder, for whatever reason, whether you're having a conversation about investment or you're just if a funder is asking you to provide some information, you need to know your numbers. And at the end of the day, they want to know how are you going to make money, and how are you going to take that investment that they're making and make good use of it, right? What are you planning to do with the funds? What would you do if you don't raise enough money? Are you still going to continue with this venture, right? So I think those are important things to know, but it starts with having a strong budget and knowing how you're going to spend the funding that you're applying for.
Mm-hmm. Excellent advice there. Just so our attendees are aware, we have about 20 minutes left of time for our questions with our panelists. And I see that there are a few questions here. So I want to make sure that folks' questions are getting answered instead of us just going through the questions we have here. So one person, this is from Mehrsa, they're asking, can you walk us through how to compute the close rate? So that 94% close rate that you talked about, how did you compute that?
How did I what?
How did you compute?
Oh, compute. Okay, so simple. I talked to 100 people and I closed 94 of them. It's 94% closing ratio.
Yeah. There you go. That's simple and easy.
How many customers do you actually turning to a paying customer? And it depends on how you define it. I define it to paying customers. Because if they just say, yes, oh, I have like so many mentors that say, oh, I have talked to all these customers, I have interviewed, I have serviced 200 people. Everybody said they're going to use it. I'm like, unless you show me a contract, a PO, or a document that they're legally bound to pay you, no, because they can walk away. And you guess what? You use the best years of your life, all your passion, all your energy to build something people are not going to pay for. Why? You're the first investor of your startup. You have to be convinced to do it.
Absolutely. You have to be your biggest cheerleader for your company. Alicia is asking if your business has two aspects to it, for example, manufacturing and training, is it better to focus on one aspect when doing a pitch or both? It's difficult, I guess, to be answering some of these questions without the context of the company. But does anyone want to take that on? So yeah, Mehrsa.
Sure.
I can't see if Amin was. Oh yeah, go ahead.
The thing is, there's so many, I'm not sure if this is relevant. So if it's not, I apologize in advance. If you're using the two-sentence model, you can talk about it in your example. And you don't have to share everything and include everything in what your company does. The thing is that to get them excited and always get the next meeting or have them ask questions. I'm not sure if you're specifically asking about sharing the both, like the business models or the solutions, but I would focus on what resonates the most. Like, for example, I share this with you for Mintless. This was a trading platform for high value assets. Imagine you have an extra car in your driver, you want a boat. You sell your car for $100,000, you pick up a boat for $150,000, you pay the tax on the $50,000 difference. That's going to save you like $10,000, $20,000 in tax, whatever it may be, right? So, but we didn't start with that. We just started with cars because it's easier for people to understand. Oh, you sell your Honda to a Honda dealer, you pick up a Mercedes from a Mercedes dealer, you pay tax on the difference. So you don't have to explain everything and anything. Just focus on what resonates. Focus what you need right now. That's the way I understood the question. But Amin or Rohit, do you have anything else to share?
I will say before you answer, I mean, Elisa just put into the chat to clarify. So they make dance costumes and they teach kids and adults the trade of sewing. So that's the manufacturing and service.
I can share an experience on this side. Hopefully, will resonate. A lot of times, when we talk about Craver, or I think the other businesses that we have created and we raise money for, you would see, Isabel, you mentioned it before, that you're going to hear a lot of no's, and a lot of people try to find a reason or a friendly reason to tell you a no, without giving you the main reason they're saying no. And the truth of the matter is that each one of those investors, they're seeing thousands of pitches and they're maybe investing in one or two, maybe 10. So the rate is very low. And you need to build that thick skin. I think a lot of people with the diverse background, they have built the grit that is why they are an entrepreneur. So you already have some of that ingredients. But like they need to say no. And sometimes when they see a business with two sides, they will say no because you're focused on this side. They could also say no because you're focused on this side. They just like at that point, they just want to say no. We had a mentor that was telling us that there is a powerful there's a power in the and. What if you could do this and that? I think you could build a really good business as a result of it. But on the other side, I have seen a lot of times that the investors will look at the two. If they're not complementary, if there's not one of them that is sort of can sit right underneath the other one as a point of being distracted, and they really are focused on finding focused founders. So if you could position this as that you're approaching with one of them, and the second one is a complementary, it's an added benefit that is not taking away from your focus, I think that will work really well. And it doesn't really matter which one is the top one, as long as there's one of them that is like that. And to Mehrsa's point, when you position it that way, in the first conversation that you have with the investor, you're just putting the first one out. But maybe when they go deeper, when you have earned their trust and earned their time, you can now expand that. You know what? There's this other aspect of the business that is very complementary and it added value, and that's how you would position the two sides.
I love this. Actually, I mean, just to share a little bit more, because we had several additional revenue avenues. For example, charging on the insurance, the back office, whatever it may be, right? But we didn't share it in the pitch. We just had one slide that said additional revenue streams. So that shows that's exactly what Amin said. We had picked what has the highest margins or has the highest traction, and then the rest is complementary. So there are ands. So that kind of shows that your business is not limited and you have already paved the way. for how to expand it and scale it, but they're not going to be the distraction because your whole pitch is on the first thing that you do, on the main thing that you do.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for those.
And it can change based on the investor. Read the room, study the audience. I mean, it's like nothing you said. Yeah, I think we had very different pitches for different people. It doesn't mean that you change what you do, it's just how you say it.
Exactly. No, that's so true. It's not just one size fits all with this sort of thing. You really need to know who you're talking to. Susan Shawley is asking, they're pitching at Web Summit in Vancouver. First of all, congratulations, Susan, on being selected. It's for 2 minutes. Susan's asking, how can I do an effective pitch within 2 minutes that will attract investors? So I suppose what are the buckets that Susan should be filling in this pitch?
I can chime in. We did a 2-minute pitch at Collision, and I can also share our experience at Collision. A 2-minute pitch, you are not putting it's not a tactical pitch, it's an emotional pitch. So the whole thing that you need to put in there is about how can you tap into the emotion that you want to create in people for them to come and talk to you later. Because in 2 minutes, nobody will decide to invest in you, but in 2 minutes, you can earn their time to talk to you later. So I think that's going to be the whole focus if I were to do that. Actually, our pitch that we did at Collision is on my LinkedIn page, so you can go and see that. We only talk about the emotion of a coffee shop owner that is competing with Starbucks, and that's the whole thing about that. It's nothing about what we do or how we do it. It's all about like that feeling. Another point about the Collision, about Web Summit or Collision or anything like that Mehrsa mentioned. When we went to Collision in 2021, I believe, or 2022, we booked about 40 meetings before we landed in Toronto, because like you could reach out to people, you can tell them what you're doing, and I had a back-to-back meetings with 40 people during the 3 days or 4 days that I were there. So it was a lot of meetings, half an hour each one of them. And I think that is something that you can do. And that's, in my view, the best way to get started with the conversation. You need to prep. A lot of things around fundraising comes ultimately to preparing for that and being there at the right time.
I can add to that too. When we're finalists for BC Tech, I think that's like a minute, 60 seconds. And love what you said, Amin. It's an emotional feeling that you're going after. So I wrote, I'm looking here because my notes are here. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to showcase your confidence, your passion, and your knowledge. And actually, this can be a massive advantage for you to separate yourself from others, to go back to the first slide that I had that says you can stand out by being concise and clear, because other people may try to jam as much as they can in 60 seconds. They may talk too fast, but you can own your pitch, and that's how you're going to be memorable and stand out. So less is more, and that can be your advantage.
Wonderful.
The other thing is that for the 60-second, what you could do is that you can pitch to someone else, like your mentors or people who've been there, done that, and ask what stuck and how would they do the 60-second now, and hear from multiple people and see what are the points that sticks with people. And that's exactly what Amin said. Those are the points that, like, the emotional pieces that you want to focus on, so you can actually raise your voice. You can pause before or after it. Those are the points that you grab the attention.
Excellent advice. Thank you so much, both. Rohit, I'd love to get to you again. We had a question. I think I saw it in the chat, and it was a question around fundraising in a recession or during more difficult times. And of course, the landscape in Canada is like many, it ebbs and flows. And at the moment, it does seem to have the purse strings are tightening, I guess it would be a good way of putting it. So given the current landscape in Canada, are there any innovative or perhaps less traditional funding avenues that these equity deserving entrepreneurs should be exploring?
Yes, urgency is the avenue. Spending is down. people are traveling less to the United States. We're seeing a decline in grants on the charity side because the government just got organized. They just appointed ministers like a week ago. They're not set up.
Yeah.
So all of this creates a sense of urgency, not just for-profit entrepreneurs, but also nonprofit and social sector entrepreneurs. And what you need to do is you need to reach out to your funders with that urgency. So I saw in the news there was, I believe it was an animal shelter type of organization, animal rescue, animal welfare in BC, and the headlines were that they urgently needed funding. Something had happened and there was a shortfall. Well, within the 18 hours that it took for that story to reach the headlines, if you go on their website, it said, we were able to get funders to step in and fill this gap. And it was because they created a sense of urgency, right? They said that, I believe it was a wildlife rescue. They urgently needed this funding. Their donations were down and the need had increased. And it's like urgency helps funders to prioritize. So whatever it is that you're doing, whether you have an innovative venture that's solving the world's problems, or whether you're working on, something from the social sector that's saving people's lives, why should the funder fund you now? Why is your organization the best organization to be doing this work right now? Why you? And what's this money going to do to make that impact? And you don't have to wait for a funding call. You don't have to wait for an application deadline or for a portal to open up. You can just reach out to those funders. You can write them a letter. You can send them an email. And very often, if the work you're doing is time sensitive, if there is an urgency, they will bend over backwards to try and support. And that goes for investors, I'm sure, as well. But certainly institutional funders provide that help. And that example I gave earlier about the funding institution that was taking a long time on that loan. Well, we spoke to an officer and we said, look, like we've been waiting a long time. This is getting pretty urgent. Can you do something? And they said, okay, like we're gonna, actually fast track this and create urgency because you've reached out to us and you're a long time client of ours. Urgency creates priority.
Excellent piece of advice. Thank you so much, Rohit. All right, I think I've got time for maybe 2 more questions for our speakers. So if there is anyone in the room that would like their question to be answered, please do put it into the Q&A box. Mehrsa and Amin, you've both sort of talked about networking and having those conversations, navigating the startup ecosystem on a whole, whether you're focusing on the province that you're in or Canada-wide. There are so many great supports out there, so many different ways that entrepreneurs can connect with each other, other supports. What advice do you have for these founders on building strong connections, building strong networks, and maybe finding mentors who can understand their unique experiences? Who would like to go first, Amin or Mehrsa, please?
Amin, do you want to go ahead? I can follow.
Yeah.
I can
Go ahead, Mehrsa.
Sure. So I think let me make sure, Isabel, answer your question right. So you're focusing on like how to expand your network, mentors, or advisors.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Advice on like where they can go to build these connections and nurturing them.
I get that question a lot. Mehrsa, how do you get like all these mentors? How do you get all these advisors that actually do work for you? Not advisors that just have their name on the, on your website or your deck just to get some credibility. The people that actually do work for you. I think that there are 2 parts. How do you start a relationship and how do you get there? Let me start with how you get there. How you get there is looking, and actually helps with the starting as well. Looking at the relationship as 2-way. The best relationships are the relationships that you're giving something to, not just because, oh, they're mentors, they have to do something for you. So I have worked for my mentors. I have volunteered for them. If they needed something with the, non-dilutive financing for one of the portfolio companies, I did it. So it goes both ways. But how to start it is, one way is that actually if you're doing volunteer work, if you're helping, if you're sitting on different panels, if you're taking the time to do like this webinars or panels or different fireside chats, those are the people that that remember you, or sitting on the board of directors. If you're not there in your career yet, you can ask for people to make introductions for you. I was new to Canada, so I came from the States. My whole network is in the States. When I came here, I started doing some volunteer work. And then those people got to work with me. They understand your expertise. They understand what you can bring to the table. And then you have built your credibility and the battery is full. So you can actually now get some resources back and you can ask for help. You can ask for favors. But always, for me, as always, how do I keep it a balanced relationship? What can I do for you? And that goes with mentors, advisors, investors, customers, anyone. How may I serve you? And I said that to all my sales and team members too. Have that attitude of how may I serve you? And that's how you get the best out of anything.
I love
But
that.
you have
And
to genuinely mean it, not just to
yeah,
do what to get, but genuinely mean how may I serve you?
yeah. Just like, you know, any other relationship, non-professional relationship that you have in your life, right? It's never going to be one-sided. Or if you've ever experienced a one-sided personal relationship, it doesn't last very long. So, you know, yeah, having that sort of ask and offer is a great piece of advice. I mean, what's your advice?
Um, I have so I think everything that Mehrsa said, that is exactly what I would say around how to build a relationship. One piece of tactical advice that I have used and it worked really well for me, and I think probably going to work for other people as well, is that um, a lot of times just being at the event and having a presence will have an impact. So go to as many events as you can, because when somebody sees your face, 5 different events, 10 different events, without even talking to you, you're creating a familiarity that you are now are more credible than somebody that they haven't met before. Not talking to you at all. Just being at more events so you have FaceTime with people, even if you're not speaking to them, will have an impact. If you can talk to people and then you follow up on those conversations in the other events, will have an impact. Listening really well on what they are saying and bringing that up. Like salespeople have this thing that they write about, like the family, or they have a son or they have a daughter, and this is the age, maybe what they're doing, and bringing that up next time. When people see that you are hearing them, you're listening to them, that will basically create that relationship and will move that relationship to the next level. So that's one thing. Now I have a conflicting advice as well. I'm gonna conflict with exactly all I just said. As a founder, your time is very important, and one of the things that I've been talking to people is like in unconferences. I don't know if people are familiar with unconference. Is a way of is a type of conference that like every topic will be decided by the people at the time of the conference. They have a rule. They call it the rule of 2 feet. That you have 2 feet. If you're in a session and you're not getting value of that, use those 2 feet. Move to another session. So you should always use your time wisely, and so that is an important part. I think the two might seem conflicting because I'm saying like go to as many events and get FaceTime, but don't waste your time. But like I think what you can do is that like the people in the event you could use your rule of 2 feet. If you're talking to someone and you say there's no fit, I don't think that I can help them. They can't help me. Very respectfully continue the conversation with other people and like just go around. Like don't get stuck in a networking event just talking to one person the whole time.
Great point.
And
Absolutely.
work the room. I mean, you're really great at that too, like working the room.
Thank you so much. All right, before I ask my final question to our speakers, I'm going to launch our feedback poll just to give our attendees enough time to properly answer it. Really would love to hear from you. This is our first one. We want to make sure that we're providing you with the best service and education with these webinars. So please take the time, if you can, to answer it. So to tie us all up, to the speakers, one piece of actionable advice. There's one piece of advice that our attendees here today, or anyone that watches this recording, that they can take away if they're preparing a pitch. So one piece of actionable advice for an entrepreneur preparing to pitch their idea. Rohit, I'll go to you first.
Get advice from your friends, family, have them watch that pitch and get advice from them before you get in front of funders.
Excellent piece of advice. Mehrsa.
Enjoy it when you're pitching. That brings the best out of you. Leave all the stress out. Just be confident and be comfortable. And you transfer that emotion to the other person too.
Mhm. Wonderful. And I'm in.
Great clarity to Mehrsa's point. I think that's probably like what I took from Mehrsa's slides. The biggest part is create clarity for yourself, because that will help you create clarity for your investors.
I'll add something else, Isabel, is that when I said like be comfortable and don't stress too much. For example, when I was given an example of Mentless, because I didn't think about like giving you the 2 sentences, I just wanted, like when I was sharing my screen, I was like, oh, let me just give the 2 sentences. And then I thought about it, I was like, oh, my 2 sentences sucked for Mentless. The first sentence should have been Mentless is the first platform that allows you to mix and match car dealers in the world. That should have been my first sentence. So then when you think about it after, follow up. Just say it and be authentic. Say it. The investors love it because they know you're the first person who own your mistakes, and you're willing to take the next step to fix it. And that brings the best version of you to the table.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Fantastic pieces of advice for our attendees or anyone that watches this afterwards. If you haven't already, please do answer the feedback poll. But that concludes our first webinar of the Startup Canada Equal Slice program of 2025. So thank you so much to our speakers, Amin, Mehrsa, Rohit. Thank you so much for joining us today, for giving your extensive knowledge and expertise and your energy as well. 1.5 hours of energy takes a lot out of you. So really, truly thank you for bringing your energy here today. To our attendees, thank you also for showing up as well. You're also taking time out of your busy schedules, busy days. So we really do appreciate when each and every single person shows up for our webinars and ask the questions as well. You have a few more minutes to connect with each other in the chat. As always, we will collect all of the resources, the slides that you saw earlier, and we'll send those to you in the next few days as well. So rest assured if you missed anything. And also, of course, thank you to Pizza Hut for their generous support with this program and for their commitment to supporting equity deserving entrepreneurs. So 2 pieces of news, I suppose. So as we mentioned earlier, we are hosting an in-person pitch competition in Toronto on June 10th, and applications are still open until Monday, May 26th. So we'll add the application link into the chat as well. We are doing a virtual pitch competition. We have paused those applications just until tomorrow. So if you're not in Toronto and you want to do the virtual pitch competition, rest assured tomorrow they will reopen. And then the next webinar that we'll be hosting will be on June 17th, which is about protecting your intellectual property. So again, we will also add the registration link in for you as well. Thank you all so much, and I hope to see you all at our next one. And if there's anything you need, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.